The weight of the weapon, a fictional U.S. town named Ash Grove, a typical, middle American suburb with a polished surface and a quiet undercurrent of racial tension. Partonether. Kstiet. Tasha Hill had lived in Ash Grove for 6 years. She was the first Black woman to ever own property on Clover Creek Lane. At 39, she was a veteran journalist turned local archivist. Her house was modest but proud, filled with books, family photos, and the smells of seasoned cast iron and lavender candles her neighbors called her. Polite, quiet, strong-willed, the code words. But Tasha wasn't naive. She knew what they said when they thought she couldn't hear. One of the good ones. Should have bought in Southridge too serious. The real storm started with her niece, Jordan, who came to live with her after her brother passed. Jordan was 15, bright, with deep brown skin and a halo of natural hair. Some of the neighborhood boys, 3 white teens from the nearby high school, started harassing her first. It was subtle, mocking her hair, throwing paper at her on the school bus, pretending not to see her in line. Then came the real poison. A noose made of jump rope left on their porch. A TikTok posted by the boys mimicking slave auctions, using black Barbie dolls. Tasha went to the school. They said boys will be boys. The police said, there's no hard evidence, so Tasha said nothing for 3 weeks. She gathered instead. Watched. Waited. Dug in places no teenager would expect a grown woman to reach. PARTTWOTHEINV. Then, one Sunday, Tasha delivered personal invitations to the homes of the boys involved, Caleb, Brandon, and Trey. Polite. Formal. Embossed, even you are cordially invited to a presentation on history, memory, and accountability hosted by Ms. Tasha Hill. Curiosity and entitlement made them show up. She held it in her backyard. Her lawn was perfectly trimmed, garden lights twinkling as the sun dipped below the horizon. There were folding chairs arranged like a gallery, a projection screen. A table covered with a black cloth. Jordan sat in the front row with her camera rolling. Thank you for coming, Tasha began. I want to share something personal tonight. You've each taken the time to make my family feel unwelcome. So now I'll return the favor with context. She dimmed the lights and began a slideshow, not of violence, not of blood. She showed redacted police reports from the 1960s when her grandmother was beaten for registering Black voters. She showed housing deeds from the same neighborhood with racist covenants barring non-Caucasians. She showed yearbook photos of white students in blackface and asked them to look closely. One boy gasped. His own grandfather was in the photo, but that was just the beginning. From the table, she lifted a long, locked case, velvet lined inside. She opened it slowly. Inside was a worn wooden object, something between a staff and a cane. The top was carved with intricate patterns. Burn marks scorched its base. This, she said softly, was my great-grandfather's protest stick. He carried it during the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. It was the only thing he saved from the fire that consumed everything he owned. The boys were silent. He used it to walk when they broke his legs, and later to point at his students as he taught in segregated schools. This stick has survived a lynch mob, police raids, and generations of white denial. She walked toward them, slowly. You wanted to break a child, she said. Eyes on Trey. You left a noose. But you don't understand the weight of symbols. As she held up the staff, now casting a long shadow, is my weapon. Not because it can harm, but because it remembers. Brandon's breath hitched. Caleb looked away. Trey tried to scoff, but his voice cracked. She leaned the staff against Trey's chair. Now you carry it. 1 hour. Hold it while you sit. Feel it. That's your assignment, no, Trey said, barely a whisper, then leave. But know this, I'll show this footage to your school, your parents, the city council, not to punish you, to remind them that when you tried to make us disappear, we showed up instead. With truth, Jordan stopped filming, and the boys cried not because they feared the staff, but because it stripped away the lie they lived in that racism was gone, that their cruelty was harmless, PARTTHREETHHSHIFT. The video went viral, not because it was loud, because it was undeniable within weeks. The school launched a new program on local Black history. The boys were forced to attend racial justice workshops and publicly apologize. One of them, Brandon, wrote a letter to Tasha. In it, he said, "I thought power meant being on top. I didn't know it could mean carrying the weight of what came before." Tasha didn't reply. Not yet. She and Jordan planted sunflowers where the noose had been left. They grew tall and bright, because the most powerful weapons are not guns or fists, but truth carried like a staff, heavy, scarred, unbroken end.